Hi everyone and welcome to Module 4. The focus this week is around cognitive and non-cognitive capabilities. Looking forward to it. So the instructional leaders that I work with within Microsoft across the globe, are very clear when they're working with their instructional designers around the kinds of learning that the organization stands for, and highlights and illuminates. And one of the things that stands out really clearly is this focus on improving cognitive and non-cognitive skills to promote lifetime success. And we've probably all been and heard similar things around those topics. They're sometimes bandied around as general capabilities, as essential skills and requirements, sometimes referred to as 21st century skills, or sometimes as cognitive and non-cognitive skills. Plus, there's also this push, if you like, around identifying certain predispositions or behavioural traits. The US Department of Education published a white paper a couple of years ago on perseverance, grit and tenacity as essential attributes for lifelong success. So what I want to do is just step through for this session the ITL research and some other materials which pick up and illuminate this topic, this important topic around essential capabilities, transferable skills. I'll probably call them 21st century skills. That's easy, although I have problems with the term. Interested in your thoughts on that, but we'll step through this research. So the ITL research was a really interesting piece of research concluded in 2011. It was sponsored by Microsoft, but it isn't a technical piece of research. It doesn't position any particular devices or products or solutions. SRI International conducted the research, and Professor Maria Langworthy was the Chief Research Officer, and this is available to you to read in full. I think you'll find this really interesting and really quite a powerful piece. So there were a number of countries who were actively involved in the trialling of the research tools that were used and the research methodologies, and you can certainly read through that. And a number of esteemed organisations were involved as in an advisory capacity. There was a definition taken within the research around what innovative teaching was, and innovative teaching was seen to be teaching that was involved using student-centered pedagogy approaches. There was extended learning, which was extended beyond the classroom, beyond the regular teaching or learning day. There was 24/7 access, both asynchronous and synchronous. And there was a particular type of technology integration, that's the ICT, information communication technology, that was used. That was a high-level use. The research sought to prove a correlation between the design of learning, the impact, if you like, of innovative teaching and learning, and the demonstration of the particular skill set which was identified as being part of that 21st century skill set. And you can see those listed there: knowledge building or knowledge construction, self-regulation or metacognition, collaboration, skilled communication, problem solving and innovation, and global awareness. There was also the high skill of ICT use by the individual. So the premise was that if learning was designed that was student-centered, that was extended beyond the classroom, and there was thoughtful and purposeful integration of technology, then the students would have opportunities to develop and demonstrate those particular skills. So there was a study which was conducted and students were analysed. So what the researchers did was they viewed the learning design by the teacher, interviewed the teacher, they ranked the teacher's learning design using a particular rubric tool that was developed, which you will have access to. They then observed the teacher teaching that particular piece of learning. They observed the learners engaged with the content, they analysed work samples, interviewed the students and so on, and then they used a similar rubric to rank the student output. Whew. Okay, now this crazy little graph that looks like the blue bubbles, I'll just explain that. You can see the coding of the learning activities along the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, and you can see the student demonstration of 21st century skills running vertically, again 1 being the lowest, 4 being the highest. What the graph shows, which is no surprise, that if learning design does not intentionally plan for students to develop and demonstrate those 21st century skills, then students do not demonstrate those. So regardless of how great students might be at Snapchat or Slappy Birds or Angry Birds, they will not demonstrate skilled use of technology unless that is planned for and opportunities to rehearse and demonstrate and apply that are factored in. So what was interesting with this research was the consistency of that story across all of the countries. So students were asked across the globe about their uses of technology in learning, and we see here that the research identifies high-level uses of technology, ICT, as being the things in the bottom quadrant. These are the things young people should be doing the most. Developing simulations or animations, working beyond the classroom, using simulations and animations, creating presentations which have got rich multimedia, and collaborating. They should be using technology to do these things. Yet, the flip side is across the globe, in both developed and emerging markets, the same story was told over and over again, that to a large degree, technology was used for basic activities, some low cognitive activities that you can see at the top, in many cases used to transcribe. Okay, in terms of impact on professional learning, the researchers sought to understand what type of professional learning is most impactful, and these were the results. Interesting, the top 3: to practice a new teaching method, to conduct individual or collaborative research on a topic, to plan or practice using technology in teaching, and review and discuss student work. In a sense, it's those same 21st century skills that are being required when you look at those top 4, to construct knowledge, to use technology thoughtfully and purposefully, to engage in collaboration, skilled communication, and problem solving in a real world context. So the most impactful professional learning is designed exactly the same way that impactful learning is designed for students. There's some information in here on barriers, especially around this technology agenda. Okay, the rest of this research continues on talking about the tools and the design methodology, and then there's an article at the bottom from Michael Fullan, who's well versed in this topic. And he essentially talks about innovative teaching and learning within the context of whole system reform. So you can certainly read that one at your leisure. Okay, the other really useful document that I want to highlight to you is this one, Fostering and Measuring Skills, which is published by the OECD. What I particularly like about this is the congruence between the materials here and the ITL research. So if we just have a quick look at the table of contents here, you'll see there's a section on the skills needed for success in the labour market. There's a framework on page 31 for understanding interventions. Great example. And I think if we skip down to page 49, education and interventions targeted towards adolescents and young adults. I think what this document does well is it reviews the recent literature, both the economic rationale and driver, if you like, and also the psychological, the neurological elements of non-cognitive skills and how interventions can develop non-cognitive skills. The suggestion with the research is that these non-cognitive skills predict with some degree of accuracy later life outcomes with the same or greater strength as measures of people's cognition. They have a strong effect on educational attainment, but have additional effects on important life outcomes beyond their effects on schooling. So, to make a life and be happy, the development of both cognitive and non-cognitive skills is critical. The non-cognitive skills, they're not traits which are unchangeable from birth, can be enhanced, and there are proven and effective ways to do this. The non-cognitive skills are shaped by families, schools, social environment. It's the nature versus nurture. But at any age, non-cognitive skills are stable across different tasks. But performance on any task depends on multiple skills as well as the effort expended on it. Effort, in turn, depends on incentives to perform the task. Since all measures of the cognitive and non-cognitive skills are measures of performance on some task, it's necessary to standardize for incentives, effort, and other skills in measuring any particular non-cognitive or cognitive skill, although this is not widely done. So there are reliable measures of non-cognitive skills that have been developed, and there's active literature on improving what is available. So certainly I think given the pivot around interventions targeted to different stages of the life cycle, early years through to adolescent interventions, I think this is particularly interesting and relevant for the work that you're engaging in as an instructional leader. So I'm just going to skip through to the part that is most super here. Apologies if that makes you feel ill. Here we go. This fantastic reference list, which I essentially use the reference list of the OECD here as part of my my reading list and my research list. So you'll find super references back here for both this work, but also certainly for your future work as an instructional leader. Okay, my favorite topic. Thanks for listening.